Season 1 of Prairie Prophets has been an amazing adventure. We've crisscrossed the Midwest learning about prairie restoration and cover crops. On this episode, we're looking back on lessons learned, exploring plans for the future, and celebrating accomplishments already made. We're visiting Cyclone Country in Iowa, where we begin with an outdoor dinner of friends and colleagues. Then we head to Iowa State University for a deep dive into what's to come. Out here in the heartland, where agriculture drives rural economy, we are on the path to a future that not only produces food, but also renewable energy, ecological services, and improved wildlife habitats. I'm on a journey to tell the stories of Horizon 2, a climate-smart future for corn, soybean, livestock, and renewable natural gas production. I'm Brandon Butler, and this is Prairie Prophets. We're in Ames, Iowa for the kickoff celebration of the Horizon 2 grant. 14 partners came together a little over a year and a half ago and began this journey towards the restoration of prairie and the establishment of cover crops in agricultural lands of Iowa and Missouri. Tonight, we're here to celebrate an incredible journey that got us to the actual signing of the grant. Rudy Raceline is in attendance, along with Lisa Schulte-Moore, and so many others that have been instrumental in getting us across the finish line. The work is just beginning, but tonight we celebrate.
I've always had this affinity for wild places, and especially in German, they call them Wiesen. And they're prairies, wild meadows. And so I've had this affinity for flowers and for wild places my whole life. And I had the good fortune, I guess because I was an immigrant and I lived at all these displacement camps. So when I started my business, I really didn't have any fear of going to all the crazy places I've been. And I've had the good fortune of visiting quite a few countries in Asia and South America and Africa and Europe. And in all those places, I always look for Wiesen. And I have to tell you, it's that panic that I saw in China and many of the places where there were no Wiesen and there were no birds. And there was pollution in the streams and rivers. And I saw people at a place in China that looked like Disneyland. And I heard all these birds. And I asked the young lady at this counter, I said, this place is beautiful. I said, but I got pretty good eyesight and I can't find the birds. And she just kind of laughed. And she pointed under her counter. And I thought, I got a little cage of birds down there? And so I asked my interpreter, what'd she mean? She pulled up a recording. And the birds were in the recording. I felt that our future here in America was destined to be what I saw in China and all these other cultures that were trying to eke out a living and food and produce food and commodities, and they're chasing the rabbit just like I was chasing the rabbit. We value these Wiesen, these prairies, not just because they're beautiful. I sat in mine over the weekend and I just sat there for an hour. I had my hearing aids on so I could hear the bees buzz, I could see the butterflies, I could hear birds chirping, and the life that prairie presented. Even though we haven't had rain for 6 weeks, it was brilliant, it was beautiful. And I just kept thinking, what if we had millions and millions of acres of this? How healthy would the earth be if we could propagate millions and millions of acres? And we can show through this grant that it really has a major, major impact, not just on the environment, but on the economics of our country. I'm really humble and proud to be part of this group. Lisa, I've really enjoyed our 3 years on Sea Change. I've learned a lot. It's kept me young, listening to you, all these smart young men and women that we have on that team. I'm sure that you all are going to enjoy this collaboration as much as I've enjoyed being on the Sea Team. So thank you all for being part of this, and let's all work together to make it a success. I'll be 80 by the time it's done, and I'm hoping that we pull this off and that there's a lot more to come after that. So thank you.
Rudy's words are a humble expression of his passion for nature. He's also passionate about efficient and effective processes. We're now headed to Iowa State to gather with our partners to learn more about how the Horizon 2 process will be implemented. Brian, we've made it to the point where we have to implement this incredible grant. We've got 5 years, and the management of this is falling to you. What does the rollout look like, and how are we going to implement this grant over the course of 5 years?
Thank you, Brandon, and I hope that my bruises aren't showing from pinching myself to make sure that it's real, to have an opportunity as an Iowa farm kid to implement an $80 million USDA Climate Smart Commodities grant is unreal, and to be able to sit here with these folks and yourself and to take your visions and especially Rudy's vision and implement that on, first of all, our farm, and then to grow that across a landscape in Iowa and Missouri and hopefully nationwide is just an opportunity that is one in a lifetime. So I want to thank each of you for that opportunity. And our grant rollout starts basically today. We'll be meeting with our 14 partners here at Iowa State University in Ames, and with Will Higgins as our grant manager, and a staff that we'll be putting together, assembling here of about 10 to 12 employees within the grant to deliver and implement that grant is what we're going to be focusing on for the next 90 days. We've got a lot of ground to cover. Our ultimate goal is nearly 40,000 acres of prairie that we want to create through this grant program, as well as 40,000 acres of cover crops, winter hardy cover crops that we think will demonstrate to our partners and the public that this is the right approach to bringing ecological services to the heartland here in Iowa and Missouri, but also eventually throughout the United States. I think the Climate Smart Commodities Grant Program, as our Secretary Vilsack has mentioned, that this is a real renaissance period for us, that we can change the dynamics of how we produce food, feed, fuel, and fiber with a real focus on making sure that our conservation and wildlife efforts are equally as paramount or important as those other priorities.
Well, good morning, everybody. What an incredible day. We finally made it here. It was about 5 years ago when I began talking to Rudy about joining Raceline Alternative Energy. Anybody that's been close to Rudy knows that he's a special man, and I knew that there was a lot I wanted to learn from him, but persistence, I think, has been the greatest takeaway. And now we're here, and as Lisa said, the W has turned from wind to work. And part of that work is educating the masses, educating the public about who we are and what we're doing. People know what wind power is, they know what solar power is, but they don't know about biogas. They don't know what prairie power is yet. And that's what we're going to be working on through this grant, education and outreach portion. And Prairie Prophets is the platform that we've developed to do most of that. This movement that Rudy and Lisa and others started, it's got legs now, and we have a window of opportunity to really educate people far beyond the small silos that we've all been living in and operating in for the last however many years. With our plan in place and the finances necessary to execute secured, the team is ready to go. All of us associated to Horizon 2 are ready to implement the work that has to be done. One aspect is educating the masses and raising awareness about the initiatives related to Horizon 2. This is the goal of Prairie Prophets. We're going to take a quick trip down memory lane and look back at some of the highlights of Season 1 of Prairie Prophets. of my favorite experiences of this season was our journey down the Mississippi River watershed. We started in Brunswick on the Grand River, went down the Missouri River to the confluence with the Mississippi, all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. We learned that the theme throughout this entire region is the connectivity of clean water. From industry to individuals, everybody desires clean, healthy water. And we know that the Horizon 2 initiative is going to deliver just that.
First, I'd like to applaud you for trying to get cover crops over a large portion of the Midwest, because that's going to keep the nutrients, or help keep the nutrients out of the waterways and into the Mississippi River.
Meeting Dr. Nancy Rabola at LSU and learning about the hypoxic dead zone was an absolute thrill for me, as well as joining Captain Ryan on a boat ride to the mouth of the Mississippi.
This place it just grows like it's on some kind of fertilizer.
It's like a steroid for the vegetation.
Really.
So as these nutrients end up down here, being collected throughout the entire Mississippi River watershed, it benefits the grass. We're sitting at the feet of the greatest conservation president our nation has ever known. Washington, D.C. is the heartbeat of the world. This is where policy is set that affects us in every state of this country. Our trip to Washington, D.C. was another highlight for me, visiting with congressional members and, more importantly, citizens about how the Horizon 2 initiative can affect their lives throughout the heartland of our country was very valuable.
If you want to see how far it's come, just look around and look at the water.
Landscape conservation and how it relates to hunting is an absolute passion of mine. So to join my good friend Adam McLean from the Nature Conservancy on Dunn Ranch and learn how they turned this into a working landscape for not only prairie, but for all the species like bison that belong there was an absolute thrill for me. Because you think about, like, if you put the right habitat back on the ground, then the species that belong here will flourish. But there's really species integration as well. For like one species to have what they need, they're reliant upon the other species. So clearly you've got different plants sorted. What are we looking at here?
The Kansas City and the St. Joe Master Naturalists are these groups that come up.
Steve Mowry is a great example of a private land's dedicated conservationist who sees the vision of Horizon 2. We
have, how many gobblers? 3 or 4?
I don't know, because there were some distant ones too. I mean, it was just all up and down. But we had the 2 right across from us that were just all morning long.
And then the hen was right off to our right.
Learning more about the TSI on his property and how that affects wildlife, like wild turkeys, was a highlight of this season of Prairie Prophets.
Across the southeast, turkeys are declining, and it really awakened us to, oh my gosh, what happens if our turkeys disappear like our quail disappeared? And maybe it's, what can we do before that happens? Because we didn't do anything to interrupt that.
I sure didn't expect the northeast corner of Iowa to be such a mecca for fly fishing. The crystal clear trout streams are instrumental in the economy of the area. Protecting them is the work of us all. It's quite the stack of cans you've got here. You know, sustainability is a big part of everything we do. How do you guys incorporate sustainability into your operation?
Yes, well, we do a couple things. I mean, we're looking at cans, so obviously recycling is a big thing.
Yeah.
We recycle absolutely everything. So cans, paper, cardboard. I mean, with all of distribution, there's a lot of shipping materials that go into play. And we work with our local recycling center and make sure that we get everything.
Piece of advice that I would, even with the dry fly, I would just say, pick out a zone and just fish that zone. Whether it's just 6-foot drift. I mean, don't think that you're going to be back here, cast all the way up there, and drift all of this effectively. Just say, you know what, I'm going to focus on this area here. Yeah.
This is what you come to the driftless area in Iowa for. These are naturally reproducing brown trout. They haven't been stocked in this creek in many, many years. Rainbow trout are stocked here, but the brown trout, these are the real prize that people are after.
Through NRCS and farm programs and farmers doing the right thing over the last 30 or so years, we've cleaned up our stream bottoms. We've got exposed rocks and gravel and all places for fish to hide, for their food to live and survive, and for the trout to spawn, lay their eggs in. All of those things are required to have the wild trout. And so it's the changing of the land use or better soil and water conservation that the farmers have been basically doing on their own with the help of various government programs that have allowed us to have this opportunity today.
From agriculture to industry, protecting clean water has to be a key to our future. Rudy Raceline is the reason Horizon 2 exists. The vision of this one man has manifested into something so much larger than I believe even he could have imagined.
I can't just sit on the sidelines, whether it was on my sports teams or in business, and not really participate. There's so many problems in the world that really are opportunities, and if you look at them in terms of opportunities instead of just problems and try to figure out how you can contribute to that process, then I think you can make a difference. And I've always tried to wake up every morning and say, okay, what kind of little difference can I make today? What we're going to see today is a combination of agricultural land, northern that are really this time of year are your sunflowers. So one of the ones that we have quite a bit of, and I just wish every kid and city kid could get that recharge of being out in these prairies and being in these forests and having that health instead of being on there.
Being able to learn from him, being able to witness his vision become reality will always be a highlight of my life. Prairie Prophets Season 1 has been quite the journey. We've traveled throughout the heartland, to the Gulf of Mexico, and out to the panhandle of Oklahoma. Common themes wherever we went were evident. People desire clean water, healthier soils, renewable energy development, and a more sustainable future. Horizon 2 is going to deliver all of those and so much more.